anytime soon. Even though people have been getting the COVID vaccine jab, I don't see, us transitioning back to working from the office just like that. I still see people working from home. So the fact that end users are working from home, that has exposed them to a lot of security threats. And now they don't have the liberty to run to the IT department that, oh, this is what I saw. Is this a legit email or that? They don't have that. Then, since we know the issue, the other thing we need to consider is the top management, the decision maker, spending money is not what they like. And they always see IT as a cost center. Because in IT, if there is a problem, we just want to throw money at it. We're already looking for solutions to tackle that issue. Why neglecting the already, the existing solution that you have invested in? Why not just look into that and see if you have anything that could mitigate or resolve the issue that you might be experiencing. So going ahead, so the things I'm going to be focusing on, I'll give us an outlook. Then from there, we'll talk about the threats. At least before we can prevent or protect our users, we should know the threats that we are trying to prevent them against. Then from there, we'll talk about the security, how we can protect our end user, the security measures that we can put in place. And also we'll talk about user awareness, which is a very, very important thing that we need to do to ensure that our users are security conscious. Then if there are any questions, I will try as much as possible to answer the question.
I say, okay, Akim, sorry to cut you. So what happens is that we're not seeing the whole of your screen because you have your task bar covering the slide. So,
Okay.
Okay, very
What
well,
about now?
thank you. Yes, it's fine, thank you.
Okay. So once again, my name is Hakim Abdusalam, and I don't have to say much anymore. I think MJ has done justice to the introduction, but you can always link up with me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and these are some of the certification that I've been able to, amass over time. So I work for a consulting firm in Abuja. I lead their infrastructure, and although it has changed, not support services, it's now DevOps now. And now, so rules of engagement. I think MJ has mentioned most of this. Please kindly mute your microphone. Kindly mute your microphone. And if there is any question that you want to ask, please put it in the chat box and we'll try as much as possible to answer your question. MJ, I hope I'm audible enough.
Very well, you're good.
All right, thank you. So now let's just go straight into the presentation. So when it comes to the cloud, there is what we call the shared responsibility model. So there is what is expected of the cloud provider and also the customer, what they are supposed to take care of. So there is this notion that people have that they believe that as soon as they migrate their workload into the cloud, they are automatically secure. Even though there are some truth to that, but it is not totally true. There are some things you need to do to ensure that your assets are secure end to end, right? Depending, so your responsibility um, is a factor of the kind of model that you're running. Is it infrastructure as a service? Is it platform as a service? Or is it software as a service? So if you look at the picture that I have here, the blue color is what is expected of the customer. That is the customer's responsibility. Why the gray is the platform provider or the cloud provider responsibility. Now, today we are talking about Microsoft 365, which falls within the software as a service model. So obviously the things you will be responsible for are things like identity, how are your users authenticating? Do you have an hybrid environment? If you have an hybrid environment, do you have right backing? All those things. How do you get them configured, right? So also devices. Now you have data. What devices are users using to connect to your data? Is it a managed device? Is it an unmanaged? How do you control all of this? So these are your responsibility, not your provider's responsibility, and also your information and data. It is your sole responsibility, not the provider. So it's your responsibility to ensure that your information is secure and it is available whenever your end user needs those information or data. So since we know our responsibility running a Microsoft 365 tenant, then so we can go ahead to talk about the threats. So you don't want to be the guy that sees people running and starts running too without knowing what is chasing them. Because when you know what is chasing them, then you'll be able to decide if you have to run, jog, or walk. So now, what are the common threats that people on Microsoft 365 are susceptible to or vulnerable to? Uh, Number one, spam. Spam is all those unsolicited, annoying emails that you get. Some are malicious, some are not malicious. But at the end of the day, because they are unsolicited, you don't need them. They clog your mailbox. Your mailbox get filled up, and when that happens, before you try to delete the congestion mailbox, maybe newer emails coming in might be prevented from coming in, or you might not even be able to differentiate between an important email or not. Then malware. So malware are those attachment, malicious attachment embedded or attached to your email. So it will come in different format. It could be a .zip file, exe file, or even a Word document. It could come in form of a malware as well. So these are the things you need to be wary about. These are the things you need to look out for and see how you can protect your end user against. Then the next thing is phishing. Now, the fact that a lot of people are working from home now, so phishing is actually on the rise. So this is a scenario whereby malicious attackers try to get information such as your user's username and password, information that they will not give out willingly unless they are being tricked uh, to doing that. So we have different types of phishing. You have spear phishing, you have whaling, and all of that. Then another thread that we need to look out for is spoofing and impersonation. So this thing is another common security threat. So spoofing could come in the form of user impersonation, whereby somebody spoofs your email and they're sending an email to either your customer or somebody masquerading as you. Meanwhile, they are not you requesting for something, maybe your account detail, or you know, trying to take advantage of your customer masquerading as a legitimate entity. Meanwhile, they are not. And it could also be a domain spoofing as well, right? So now we know the threat that we are vulnerable to, that our end user are vulnerable to. Now the next step is now looking at ways whereby we can protect our end user from all this kind of attack. So mind you, today I'm not here to tell you something special or something you have not heard before. So I'm just a messenger coming here to remind you things that you might have forgotten or things that you might have overlooked, which is very, very important to take you a step further to the security um, posture that you want for your organization. So moving forward, so these are the attacks, the common attack spectrum, ways that the attackers um, try to get access to users or organization and data via domain spoofing, phishing with an email attachment, trying to get credential by imputing some links where you click on the link, then you see a username and password page whereby you think it's a legitimate website and is not. They're just trying to harvest your credential. You talk about user impersonation and also domain impersonation. So now moving ahead, we've talked about your responsibility. We are aware of the threat that are out there. Now the next question is, how do we protect ourselves from these attacks? So where do we start from? Now, when you want to solve a problem, it's always good when you come from a place of knowledge, where you know what the issue is. So when you know what the issue is, you'll be able to find a good way to tackle the problem, right? So that you will not be doing, what do you call it? Trial and error. So now going ahead, the first place you need to start from is when it comes to Microsoft 365 tenant is Microsoft Secure Score. So what Secure Score does is to give you an holistic uh, representation of your security posture. It gives you the current status of your security posture. How are you doing currently? Not only that, it shows you ways that you can improve your security posture as well by giving you recommendation, guidelines, and also feasibility into what you want to do, right? Not only that, you could uh, do a comparison with other organizations within your industry, see how well they are doing security wise. Then you'll be able to measure if you are doing below average, you are on average, or you are even above average. So I'm going to be showing you how to go about this from the portal. But before I do that, I would like to talk about another interesting uh, feature that we can always use to protect our end user. So this is something that I'm not sure I've seen any security, what do you call it? Any security webinar or social engineering session that you have not talked about this thing. And you find out that when you go to a lot of organization, they don't have it enabled, and that is multi-factor authentication. This can never be overemphasized, the importance of this. If you have MFA enabled for your user, this will prevent almost 99% of phishing attacks. Because now them having your username and password, it's not enough anymore. They need to still go through another level of authentication. So when you talk about authentication, you're talking about three things. The things that you have, or the things that you know, the things that you are, and the things that you have. So you need to combine at least two of these to ensure that you have the proper authentication mechanism for a user. So what is the thing that you know? The things that you know is the password, right? Now, what is the thing that you have? Your mobile, SMS, and the likes, right? Whereby you could get an OTP code or a push notification for you to approve a certain notification request. And what you are, this talks about biometrics and all of that. So you need to combine at least two of these. And also another, what do you call it? Another important feature that we could take advantage of is what we call conditional access, whereby you could set conditions for an authentication request to either be accepted or rejected. So there is something that I would like to go back to, which is what audit log search, right? So what audit log search does is to give you an insight into the user and administrative activities happening within your tenant. Who is deleting what, who is changing what, who is approving what. You have that visibility, which will help you to know what is going on within your um, tenant or your organization. I'm sure you people are tired of me talking. So in order not to make it boring, so let me just do some demo for us. So we'll start from the secure score, then I'll show you the audit log, and also how to enable MFA for your user. So for MFA, for you to be able to enable MFA for all your user, I think you need um, Azure, AD Azure Premium, I think the P1 license for you to be able to do that. Then maybe for you to have the features such as conditional access, then you'll be needing things like the P2. But let's even say you cannot afford all this. For all your administrative accounts, enabling MFA for them is free. So with that, at least you know that you are lowering the attack surface, right? So that will limit the lateral movement if peradventure you get attacked or not. You know that it's only restricted to a certain user. You know there won't be any privilege escalation. So now let me go to my tenants and show you. You know I've talked about what did I start? No, secure score. So let's talk about secure score. Right. So because this is a demo tenant, I don't really have much data to show you, but you could see the overview. So this, okay, I think I have another tenant open somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at this is showing you that, okay, this organization is not doing so well. They are on 25%, right? It gives, you understand that, okay, man, you need to improve on your security posture. Not only that, if you go down, it's telling you on what basis you are being ranked on, based on your identity and the application that you use. Now, if you go down, it's telling you that, okay, for the past few months, there are some points that you have gotten and you have regressed. Maybe there was a security policy that you enabled, then you disabled it, it gave you that point, then it took it back because you have disabled that security policy that you enabled. And also it's showing you some things that you could easily address, right? Ways that you could quickly improve your security posture. So you can click on it, then it shows you the things that you can do to improve. So while this is loading, it's telling you enable multi-factor authentication for all your users, right? So you can do that. How do I, for example, let's say you don't know how to do that, you can still drill down to know, for example, this multi-factor authentication that I want to enable, what benefit does it give me? Now you could see it protects you against password cracking and also account
So,
breaches.
sorry, Akin, except I'm the only one. I think what you're showing us is on the other page, that's breakdown. So probably if you have another screen, we're not seeing that.
Oh, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen is only at Microsoft Secure Score. That's what we can see, but the breakdown of the incidents, where I'm not seeing it. So that's just really alone.
So you can see it now. Can you see it now?
No, we're still at Microsoft Secure Score.
You mean the presentation?
Yes, it's still at my no, not presentation. Your tenants. We can see Microsoft Secure Score of 25.34%, but we're not seeing the
Okay, so over
breakdown.
here, over here, what I can see is Microsoft 365 security.
Yes, and you could see action plan, right?
Yes,
And
I can see
Same
action.
implementation.
here.
So
All
MJ,
right then.
since your
I
internet
think I
is not
I'm thinking yes. Sorry
is not
about
being
that.
nice to you today, yeah, it's fine.
Okay
Now,
then.
from here as well, sorry for that. So from here, you could see the prerequisite as well for you to be able to enable this, which is telling you you need Azure Active Directory Premium P1 to be able to enable MFA. So if you don't have this, then your next plan is, well, how do I get this, right? And if you go down, it's telling you the user impact, who is going to impact. Yeah, you could see it, and it's showing you on this side to the steps you could take to enable multi-factor authentication. So if you want to enable it, all you need to do is just go to your users. So your active users, let's go there. I'm sorry, I'm a boxing fan. That is why you're seeing boxers name, MMA fighters, UFC, So if you want to enable multi-factor authentication for your user, all you need to do is to come here and click on multi-factor authentication to enable it, right? So it's loading. So now you see, it's showing me that I have MFA enabled for for a single user, right? So if I want to enable for everybody, I could do bulk update and enable for everybody, provided I met the prerequisite. So let's assume I want to enable MFA for this person. All I need to just do is click on enable MFA. And the next time this user wants to log in, it will um, ask them to enable the MFA, and they will have to go through the MFA settings. So let's enable for Edihan. And now another settings that I would like to show you about MFA, you could control um, how your users use the MFA. Number one, you could configure what we call trusted IPs. So, for example, you trust a site, maybe your edge firewall, your office edge firewall, edge device or firewall, the IP, whereby if your users are within that environment, they don't have to be prompted for MFA because you trust that IP, right? Then from there, another thing you could do is you could restrict the method available to user. Do you want them to be getting SMS? They will text the MFA code to them, or you want them to use a mobile application. So these verification codes are for legacy application, which Microsoft is advising people to move away from legacy authentication to what do you call it, to modern authentication. So for me, my preference is always the mobile app, because if you use text messages and they have configured their Nigerian number, what happens when they leave Nigeria or places whereby there is network, the network is not so good, right? But obviously for them to want to log into their email or their Office 365 platform, they have internet, which is enough for your mobile app to work. And also these are some other settings that you could do, allow users to remember multi-factor authentication on devices they trust. You could limit the days, or you could give them the, what do you call it, the full 90 days, so that when they have been prompted for the first time, this device will remember that until after 30 days before it will prompt them again. So these are the things that you could do. Then let me quickly show you conditional access as well, whereby you could set up policies, to either grant or allow, to grant or deny access to, I think I'm running behind, so I'll try and make this fast, just to show you the things that are possible. So let me go. So you go to security, from security, then you go to conditional access. So now you can create a policy, right? So I could call it trusted location. So let's assume I have, I work in a multinational organization whereby we have, our headquarters and our regional offices. So I want, when my users are within those locations, they shouldn't be prompted for MFA. So I'll give it a name, trusted location. Trusted location. Then who do I want to assign this to? Obviously, I want to assign it to all my users. Then you have the option of excluding some users. You don't want to box all your accounts in case maybe Paraventure, the MFA service on Azure should, or Microsoft 365 should fail. You want like a break glass account, or to restrict or exclude your administrative account, so you can come here and put those accounts there. So if anything happens, you know that these accounts can go in and make some changes and not get boxed in. Now, so what do you want this policy to cover? What application do you want? All your application, obviously, all your Office 365 application that it should cover. We're talking about Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and the likes. Now, what condition do you want to set? You could set those conditions as well. That okay, you'll have created what we call a your named location, whereby you say, okay, anybody within this location, don't prompt them for MFA and all of that. Then you could go as well, go down and select, what option do you want? Do you want to grant them access? Yeah, if you want to grant them access. So I could say anybody that is connecting from anywhere that is not within my trusted location, grant them access or block them. If you are granting them access, request for multi-factor authentication for them to log in. Or maybe you also want the device that they are using to be compliant. Maybe you have set up some compliance policy that the device needs to meet up with, and other things that you could do as well. So just to show you some of the things that you could do with this conditional access. So because of time, I won't go beyond this. At least we have an idea of what conditional access is all about. Now, I spoke about advanced um, audit log search. So from the presentation, you could see what it does. From here, you could see that you could search based on you could have um, what do you call it, a time frame that I want to get the logs within so time and so time, and it is going to tell you the IP address that the user is connected from, the username, who the user is, and also the activities that the user is performing. So this will help you a lot in having insight into all the activities going on within your organization. So I've shown you how to use Secure Score, MFA, and also um, audit log search. So let me just show you where the audit log search is. So you go into search and you click on it. So this is by default, it is not enabled. You have to enable it for it to work. So then mind you, the retention threshold for these logs is 90 days. So if you want to keep, maybe you work in a financial institution whereby you need to keep these logs for a longer period of time, then you could maybe invest in something like Sentinel, whereby it can aggregate all your logs and it can store it from a long time. It has lots of connectors for different firewalls, different services, Office 365, and the likes. So let me go back to the presentation. Hello, MJ. I hope I'm not running too fast. Is the pace okay?
Yes, you are. You're okay. You
Yeah.
still have some time.
All right. So another thing that people do overlook is tenant branding, right? I believe it's not important, and it's very, very important because by default, if you are on Microsoft 365, everybody by default have the same login page. And mind you, when it comes to phishing attack, the attackers are not just looking at just a single organization. The only time they look at that is when it's a spear phishing attack. They are trying to cast their net wide so that they can catch more fish, right? So what it means is they will not have time to do the tenant branding. So when somebody is trying to um, you know, do a phishing attack on execute a phishing attack on your end user, by the time they click on the link, wherever it takes them to, if they are not security conscious enough to look at the URL, at least from a glance, they will be able to see that at a glance that, man, this is not the login page that I'm used to, right? So this is on the side, on the left-hand side is the default login username page for Microsoft 365 platform. And the one on the right is the branded one. You could see the company logo and you could see some other customization. You could see there is a background. So because this is what the user is used to, when it changes, for somebody that is security conscious, will know that something is wrong and the person will quickly raise an alarm. This is what I am saying. So it might not be a big deal, but it goes a long way to ensure that your end users are protected. You know, it's a way of helping your end user. So to do that, let me just quickly run you through how you could do that. So for you to branch your tenant, all you need to do is just come to Azure Active Directory and go to what do you call it? Company branding. It's very easy. You see, all the things I'm telling you, they are not something that will stress you. They're just little things that you could do to take your security posture from the current level that you are to the next immediate level, right? So then you click on configure, right? So the thing you need to do is you need to put in a background image. So you look for a beautiful image, then you could tell your graphics guy to do that for you. Where do I have it? So you could come here. Okay, this is I could just put this background image. Then maybe I want to have a logo. So let me just try and put a logo in there as well. So mind you, there is a specification for it so that your image will not look distorted. You could see the image specification. So you need to stick to that image specification and size, right? And if you want to give them a user in based on your login, what do you call it? The username framework or whatever that you're using, standard you are using, I could just say maybe you are using first name and initial. I could say first name dot last name at mctnigeria.com. So when they see it, they will know how to log in. And if there is any test you want to add, you could do it. Then you can go ahead and save it, right? So the next time that your end user will try to log in, you'll see all those things will have reflected. So let me try and log in where portal. So I'm trying to log in with one of the users within my tenant. Can you see it has changed what we just did? Now, if a user sees this, they will know that, okay, this is I'm in the right tenant before inserting their password. You see, this goes a long way in ensuring that your users are secure, right? So let's forge ahead. Now we've spoken about tenant branding. There's something I omitted. Email validation and authentication, which is very, very key in terms of security in your email platform. So we have things like SPF records. So SPF is Sender Policy Framework. So it is an email authentication mechanism that prevents your email domain from being spoofed. So what it is by default, when you're adding your custom domain to Office 365, you have to create an SPF record, right? And Microsoft has a standard that you need to create. But what about cases whereby, maybe you run an hybrid environment whereby you have an Exchange on premise and you have Office 30, Exchange Online, and your Exchange on-premise is still, relaying emails on your behalf. So how do you ensure that that um, domain is covered? Or maybe you have a marketing um, company that sends email on your behalf. So you want to be able to add all of these things. So what this thing does is when an email is being sent, the recipient, because this is a record you create on your public DNS. So when an email is being sent, the recipient email organization, their email check the um, the sender's IP. It checks it against the email or the server that is relaying the sender's email. It checks that IP against, or the MX record against the IP that has been configured on your SPF. So if that IP or MS record is, available, it allows the email to come in. But if it is not, it rejects the email. So with that, people spoofing your email will not, will be a thing of the past. In this one that I have here, this person is saying that, these IPs can relay my domain email on my behalf, and also spf.salesforce.com and spf.protection.outlook.com can send email for on my organization's behalf. Then you could take it a step further by implementing what we call DKIM. So DKIM is domain key identified email. So what that does is just a layer above SPF, whereby your email, it encrypts your email. You have um, a key pair where you have a public key and a private key. So the private key is used to set up, what do you call it, to encrypt your email, while the public key will be used to decrypt it. By default, your default Microsoft um, 365 domain will be protected by default. It will be signed. But all your custom domain, you need to configure these manually. And if you want to be able to get a report, because obviously anything that doesn't conform with this, the email gets rejected. So you want to be able to have an overview of what emails are being rejected from what username, from what domain. Then you could, set up things like what we call DMA is for reports and conformance, but that is what that is for. So you could just look up how to set up SPF, DKIM, and DMAC to ensure that you're, taking your organization security, a step further. Now, this is a very, very important um, service that we're going to talk about, Exchange Online Protection. So Exchange Online Protection is an online email filtering services that all Microsoft Tenant has by default. So this is what filters your email against spam and malware. So there are, there is a process that it goes through. So the first thing it does is, when an email is coming, you could set up a connection filtering. So whereby you could say, this is the IP that I want to allow, this is the IP I want to reject. Maybe there is this IP that you have read about or you've heard about online, maybe from your NOC or from your SOC team, that this IP has been propagating malware everywhere. So you could block that kind of IP, right? Then from there, so that's the first thing you check. Is this email, is the sender IP, is it permitted or not? If it is permitted, then it goes to the next step. If it is not at that level, it gets rejected. Now, the next thing it checks is there any malware, accompanying this email? It checks that. If there is no any malware accompanying it, then it goes to the next stage. Then this is where you have a lot of flexibility, where you could create different mail rules. Maybe you want to create an email that any email coming from a sender that is outside your organization, do this. Or maybe any email that contains a certain keyword. There are instances whereby user gets all these trending email. Oh, I have your nude, I have, all those vulgar words. You could just aggregate those words and create a rule to block them. Then it checks, is there any content of this email that a rule is blocking, or a rule is applied to? If there is none, then it goes to anti-spam. check if it contains any spam based on the settings that you have created before the email goes into what do you call it? The recipient mailbox. So with Exchange Online Protection, this is something that scan over 3 billion emails daily, right? So how does it work? So I will just show you how to configure most of this thing from Exchange. So you could do it from Exchange of online, or you could do it from the compliance pane or blade. So I've opened these already. So these are the rules that you could create. So you could just come here. Okay, let me start from the malware or the connection filtering rather. So if you go to the connection filtering, so this is becoming obsolete because Microsoft has moved this to another page where you could do this. So you could do it from here. In the future, you might not be able to do it from here anymore. I'll show you how you can do it from the compliance or protection.office.com page. I'll show you that as well. So this is where you can say, okay, you know what? I want to block this IP. I want to allow this IP. If you want to block any IP, if you want to allow any IP, you just put the IP. You could put a CIDR range and the likes, depending on how you want. And if you want to block any IP, you put it under this, what do you call it? Under the block list, just like you have a whitelist and a blacklist. And also you could enable safely. So these are Microsoft um, trusted IP, or the IP might be third party um, IP that Microsoft trusts. So you could enable that as well so that those kind of IP will be allowed if you choose to. Now, the next thing after connection filtering, it goes through the malware filtering to see if your email contains malware. So by default, most of these malware, they come in .zip file, .exe file, all of those things. You don't want to allow such, right? So these are the things that has been blocked by default. You could see anything .ace, you have the macros, you have the exe, the jar, the registry, all these things, VB script, all of those things, you want to block them because you don't want people receiving emails that contain this kind of what do you call a file attachment. If there is any other file attachment, you choose to either remove or add. Maybe there's something you need in your organization, you could add it. But if there's something that is not here that you want to, all you just need to do is just click on plus and add that file extension. And anytime that file extension, accompanies any of your email, they get rejected, right? Because this rule will be processed before the email hits your desktop, sorry, your user mailbox. So that is all of that about anti-malware. Then, so let me just quickly take you through Mailflow because we are running out of time. So you could create different Mailflow. Let's assume test. I want to create a Mailflow that says any user, any sender that is outside my organization, right? That is outside my organization, this should happen. Maybe I want to warn my user that, okay, because this email is coming from outside, be careful before opening it. It might be a malicious um, email, right? I could choose that, okay, I want to forward this email to somebody or any email coming from outside and the content of the email. What is that? Um, okay, let me add a condition. Add a condition. And the content, maybe the subject or body. I could say this subject or body contains the word note, right? If it contains that, do the following. Forward this message for approval. Then you could put somebody there that will, what do you call it? Somebody that will approve that email. So when that kind of email comes in, before maybe your boss is a target, before it gets to your boss, somebody will have, get a hold of that email and see if it's a legitimate email or not before it gets to the end user. So there are lots of flexibility, there are lots of rules that you can create from it. You just need to try it out and see what works for your organization. And now, So the next thing I want to talk about. So if you look all the things that I've mentioned, they are free. It comes with your tenant. If you have basic, you'll be able to do most of these things, right? Now I'm talking, so I call this bonus because most of these things you have to pay for them for you to be able to use it. You know, you need to upgrade your license if your license doesn't have their services or feature embedded in it. Now, and I've talked about EOP, right? EOP talks about connection filtering, anti-malware, mail flow, content filtering. And there's something we call advanced threat protection. So this is useful in cases whereby there are some things that um, what do you call it? Escape the EOP. Maybe there are some things that it did not capture. Then your advanced threat protection could capture it. So you have things like SafeLink. So what SafeLink does is it scans all the URL embedded within your email to see if they are malicious or not. So what happens is if rewrites the URL, then before the URL will be opened by the user, it will first do some scanning on it. If it is malicious, it will warn the user that this email is malicious, and you could now configure that. Okay, do I want to enable click through that? It should be able to, when you go, just like when you go to a site whereby the SSL has expired, you could say, okay, add to exception, blah blah blah. You could say, okay, can they do that, or by default it should block them. Then safe attachment as well, where you could, it scans all your attachments. So it detonates that instead of opening the attachment directly in your system, it opens it in a sandbox, run some security scan on it to ensure that, the, what do you call it? The email is safe, it's not malicious, or the attachment is safe. Then you have anti-phishing that talks about protect you against things like domain, spoofing or impersonation or user impersonation. Now, if you look at what I have below, you see, look at this domain, they look alike domain. If you look at the first Google and the second Google, they look alike, but they are not the same thing. But you could see the second O in the second Google is not the normal O that we are using. This looks like all these Roman, whatever alphabet. Now, if you look at the look-alike address. Now, if you look at these two address, they look alike. If you're not conscious, you might miss this. One has a single T and one has a double T. You have to be super patient to be able to see this. So this is what this anti-phishing will protect you against, right? So moving ahead. Now, remember when we were talking about your, what's the name? We're talking about your responsibility. We said it is your responsibility to look at, what do you call it? To monitor, or you are in charge of ensuring the devices that your users are using to connect to your data are secure. Maybe they mean a certain level of compliance that you have set, blah, 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 like that. Now, so with endpoint management, you could use it to manage your mobile device and also your application. So from here, you could see, you could manage devices, not only devices, any device. It could be your iOS, your Mac, Windows, Android phone. You could see from here. Those are the things that you could manage. Then not only that, you could deploy application from it. Maybe there is a line of business application, or there is a certain application that all your users should have. You could deploy it using this endpoint manager. A lot of people have this and they're not taking advantage of it. So if you have the EMS license, this comes with your EMS license and some other license like business premium. It comes, so it's something that we could all, take advantage. And also, not only that, it's not about deployment, it's not about device enrollment or app deployment. There is security involved, right? You could set up things like, what do you call it? Antivirus. You could enable BitLocker from it. You could even set the policies that controls the kind of devices that could enroll within your organization. For example, maybe you don't want a jailbreaked iPhone or Android within your organization. You could set that policy. So let me just quickly walk you through what we have with device man. I will just show you the portal. I won't really do much on that. So this is it. You could see the devices that you have. You could create different policies that, okay, the kind of applications that could be used within your organization needs to meet a certain updates, right? Maybe the devices that you want to enroll, they must meet a particular, maybe it has to be, maybe for IU, it has to be 14.3 for them to be able to enroll. So all these things, you could do that settings, right? And also the security settings that you could see. So I'm trying to rush through this because we're running, you know, we've spent a lot of time on most of this. So, and I don't want to waste your time. So the last thing that I want to talk about, which is very, very important, is end user awareness. You know what? The most important part of your security journey is your end user. And there's this saying in IT that says your best, your security is as strong as your weakest link. Your end user are your weakest link. And it is, important that you ensure that they are security aware. You elucidate them on ways whereby attackers could take advantage of them. Telling them when you see this, you need to look at, you have to be security conscious, right? So you tell you, it's just like somebody having a big mansion with massive fence with a metal bars and everything that looks like it's impenetrable. Meanwhile, there is a tunnel that has been created that nobody is looking after. So irrespective of how that fence, how huge the fence is and the bouncers or the security guards in front, somebody has already entered the building without them knowing because they weren't paying attention to that. And that is why it is very, very important to ensure that your users are are security conscious and security aware. So, and this is the approach that you can use. You could send them newsletters, screensavers, things whereby they will see around and it will remind them, okay, you know what this is, every day they see these things, they kind of create the mental known that, okay, you know what, these are the things I need to look out for. So at this junction, I've gotten to the end of my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed. And MJ, thank you once again for allowing me make this presentation. So if there is any question, I think this is the junction where we'll take the question before we'll call it a day.
Yes, so thank you so much, Akim. I mean, this is a very, very interesting session for me. So I see like this is like a continuation of almost all we've been talking about even since last week. I mean, I'm seeing like the need for us to be security conscious, one, and also how we can, I mean, afford security um, even while we don't break the bank, just like the title said, is very important. And then seeing all of these features that we already have on Office 365, Microsoft 365, and then a lot of it, you don't even have to buy some form of extra license for you to get it. So thank you so much, Akim. For me, you've done a lot of justice to this topic. If any of our audience have any question at this time, we're ready to take, and then we can attend to your questions. So if you do have any question, you may raise your hand or you may unmute and let us know what your questions, so that we can take your questions if you have any. But while we wait for people to say their question, I do have a question actually, because what comes to mind while you no, don't worry, I think you're laughing. Okay, so what comes to mind is when you were presenting. Now, a lot of these, when you look at the secure score page, you find that a lot of the posture, the security posture is trying to check against is against the Microsoft baseline. So what comes to mind is this: can an organization on its own set its own baseline? When on the secured score page, can you do your own baseline? And do you also have the option to have probably maybe for specific industry, you can check against the pre-configured I would like to say baseline or settings that you should have, and then you can check against it. So I have that two
All right.
questions.
Thank you so much for that wonderful question. So the first question is if um, an organization could set their security baseline. I've not tried that. I'm not sure, but I know there is a setting that can be done. For example, in the place of MFA, right? Some people might choose to use a third party, what do you call it? A third party MFA provider, things like Duo, Okta, and the like. So from there, you could select that because you are getting score for it and you're not using Microsoft MFA. You could say, I'm using a third party. Then you get a score for that. Then for you, I hope that answer the first part. I still need to dig into
Yes,
ensure.
definitely.
Mhm. So the second part where you talk about um, say, comparing yourself with other organizations within your industry to see how you measure up. That is very, very possible from Secure Score. Maybe you work in the financial industry. There are other people that work in the financial industry within Microsoft 365, and they are doing fantastically well, security wise. So you could measure yourself based on that industry. And you could even go as far, okay, selecting country as well and selecting products which you are measuring yourself against.
Okay, thank you so much. And then also, I would like to chip in something. Unfortunately, a lot of us don't even know we have this. So why Akim was talking about the security um features that Microsoft is bringing. I don't know if any of us know about the COVID-19 kit. We actually have it in the Protection Security Center because Microsoft um, collaborated with what's the name of this other organization, Terra Nova, something like that. So you have infographics you can share with your users. You have things like videos that you can play to create security awareness, the kind of things they should do, the kind of meals they should look. So I want to believe people can leverage on that also. So I just felt I should keep that in. But also, if you still have any question, please let us know. It's been a very, very insightful session for me. And like I used to tell people, security can never be enough. So all the time you learn something new. For me today, I learned something new, and I want to believe all of us on this call did the same. So if we have any other question, please, do you have any question from anywhere? Let's check my, okay. All right. Thank you so much once again, Akim. Thank you for this very insightful session. I guess all our audience took it all in, so they don't even have a question for you. So that's understandable. Um, for a lot of us, next week, please, we have another wonderful speaker who will be coming. And then the speaker also will be taking us on a topic, a deep dive introduction to Microsoft 365 usage analytics. So what can happen is this. Please join us this time next week, and then we'll be going through that same session again because of some of us, a lot of us has bought Office 365. We're trying to drive adoption amongst our user. But how do you get to really know the usage of your Office 365 services or your Microsoft 365 services so that you can you can drive adoption more in your environment? So one of the things you can do with that, there is a free tool online actually, the Microsoft Usage Analytics. So what this session will take us through is to show us how we can make use of those two, enable it, and then be able to get data, collect data on M365. And who will be taking us on that topic is Timothy Iyanu. So next week, let's make it a date next time for us to have the same session. Thank you, everyone. My system is acting up. I actually would want to show you some of those things, but all the same, I guess it's been a very wonderful time, and I believe every one of us has a very wonderful time. Please do where to fill our evaluation form. It's very important to us. And also make sure that you follow us on our Twitter and do follow us also and subscribe to our YouTube channel. This recording will be made available to every one of you, and then we will also notify you on LinkedIn and also on this channel on the Teams channel about the recording. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you, Akeem, and thank you, everyone. And with that said, do enjoy your weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.